Hello paper crafters, I keep sharing the weekly planner layouts that I'm creating for my little art journal, and now it's time for the month of March. There are 5 layouts this time, so it's going to be a longer video. That's why a cup of tea or coffee is highly recommended. I'm using this planner to schedule my videos and blog posts, so I don't need a lot of space each day for writing. I'm also leaving a lot of days blank. I used to have larger planners before, but I always ended up having a lot of empty space. This is how the idea of this book was born, where I have just little space for writing and lots of room for embellishing. Plus, I can experiment with creating a new layout each time. Let's get started. I'm opening up my book and I'm taking out all the pages that I'm going to decorate this time. That is the first reason ring binding is so convenient for me. The second reason is that it allows you to add more bulk to your pages. I have washi tape already attached to the pages, and this one is sushi themed, so I'm going to keep up with this theme. I have placed one of the pages inside the stamp platform, and now I'm going to stamp the focal image, which is the bamboo plant. Then I'm punching a circle on a scrap piece of vellum, and I'm going to use this piece as a disposable stencil. I'm applying some Festive Berries Distress ink with a sponge dauber to create the sun. The vellum is transparent, and that allows me to see exactly where I'm placing this image. Then I have used the alphabet die set to cut out the letters to spell the word March. Then I'm going to use a liquid glue in a needle applicator bottle to stick all the letters onto the page. I am attaching them one by one, moving from right to left, and aligning them with the edge of the washi tape. Then with a black suit distress marker and a clear ruler, I'm drawing some vertical and horizontal lines to create the frames. Each frame will stand for one day of the week, and I'm going to draw the 3 frames on this page and 4 on the next one. You can see that distress markers don't bleed through the pages. Now I'm using the same marker to write down the dates inside each of the frames. The 3 frames on this page are meant for the last 3 days of February, and now I'm creating the 4 frames on the other page. These ones are meant for March already. I'm writing the dates, and at this point you could call the layout done, but I have also decided to add the background. I'm going to use this wave pattern die to create a disposable stencil. This pattern is also sometimes called Japanese fans. The open areas of this stencil are so tiny that I'm using the distress marker to paint them in. The color I'm using is antique linen. I'm painting in all the areas outside the frames, but not within the frames or around the bamboo. This pattern is expandable, so I'm aligning the stencil with the pattern on a page and just keep on painting in. That finishes the first spread, and now I'm switching on to the next one. This one has floral design, so for that page I'm going to use the brown ink and some floral stamps. I happen to have this little divider stamp in my stash, and I'm going to use it to divide the left page in 4. The ink I'm using is Memento Toffee Crunch. I'm moving on to the next page and I'm placing it close by to align the stamp better. You see that this time I'm dividing the page in three, leaving more space at the bottom for some nice large image. I believe that this carnation stamp by Graphic 45 matches my washi tape perfectly. I'm stamping it a couple of times to get better impression, and then I'm also going to add a couple of smaller images to the page. They are going to be a butterfly and a bee, and I'm kind of forming a triangle on the spread. To add a little bit more interest to the background, I'm using this stamp by Tim Holtz. I'm inking it up with the white pigment ink, which is Unicorn by Hero Arts, and I'm creating a border all around the pages. You can mask off the washi tape areas, but I'm just going to use a baby wipe to remove all the ink that happened to be there. Then I'm using a fine tip of brush corduroy distress marker to write the dates. This color seems to be matching the rest of my layout. Now when the second layout is finished, let's move on to the next one. And this one is going to be sushi themed again. For this one, I'm going to use a set of the sushi sticky notes. I will need 7 of those sushi for 7 days of the week. You can see that each of those images has a white border around it, which is actually very nice and appropriate, but I'm going to trim it off just to make those sushi a little bit smaller and to make them fit into my small notebook. If you are using a larger planner, you don't have to do that. Before I attach the sticky notes, I'm going to create some background, and I'm using this stencil by Memory Box that is called Distressed Grid, and some antique linen distress ink. I'm just applying it with a dauber through the stencil. This pattern is a bit similar to kitchen tiles. So I'm going to repeat the same step on the other page. Then I'm going to arrange the 7 sushi on the 2 pages. I'm going to play around with them, and once I'm happy with the placement, I'll be using some liquid glue to stick them down one by one. Now I'm going to trim off the images that stick out of the page. As a finishing touch, I'd like to add some sentiments. I actually have 2 stamp sets, sushi themed. They are by Your Next Stamp, and I'm using Memento Rich Cocoa to stamp the first sentiment, which says "You're on the roll." Then on the right page, I'm going to stamp some words like sushi and soy, and I will also be adding a couple of little hearts from the same stamp set. To add the dates, I'm going to use the dater stamp. It also allows you to stamp the year, but for the planner I will only need the days and the month. So I'm stamping onto each of the sushi images, changing the date every time. So now the layout is finished. It turned out to be a colorful one. And now I'm moving on to the next one, which is Sushi again. This time it's the cute Sushi. I'll be using the same two stamp sets that I was using for the previous layout. It's pretty much the same idea because each of the larger images will stand for one day of the week. I have also created the masks for all the images using the same Sushi sticky notes that I used before, and now I start stamping, masking off the images and stamping again. I'm using the masks to find the better placement for all the images, and now I'm going to stamp the sentiment as well. Then I'm going to stamp the rest of the images on this page. I'm going to use the same approach to stamp all the images on the other page as well. To create my background, I have to mask off all the images first. This time I'll be using a stripy stencil by Team Holtz together with Shabby Shutter's Distress ink, which is a nice shade of spring green. If the stencil is not wide enough to cover up all the page, the pattern is easily extendable, so I'm just placing it again and continue sponging. Once the background is covered, I'm removing all the masks, and then I'm repeating the same process on the other page. I couldn't help adding a little face to the soy sauce bottle. It's also the part of the stamp set. To do the coloring, I'm going to use distress markers again. The coloring I'm doing is very basic. I'm just painting in the areas within the lines without creating any shading or gradients. The last step is writing the dates, and I'm adding the dates either inside the sushi image or outside of it. I'm using the fine tip of ground espresso distress marker for writing. This is how the finished layout looks like, and now I'm moving to the last one. This one happens to be travel themed. I will be using this stamp set by Team Holtz called Road Trip, which I think matches my washi tape. First, I'm going to stamp the largest image on the page, which is going to be this car. I'm placing the right page inside the stamp platform, and then I'm positioning the car on top of it. Since the washi tape is the combination of blue and red, I'll be using Memento inks called Nautical Blue and Ladybug. I'm starting with the red ink and I'm applying it on a stamp in a swiping motion, not the dabbing motion. This is meant to create a sense of movement. Then I'm switching to the blue ink and applying it on the stamp, again in a swiping motion, and I'm avoiding some of the areas where there is red already. I'm repeating this step one more time to complete the image. Now my car image is ready, and then I'm going to use a tire print stamp, that is the part of the set, to create some horizontal dividers as well as the vertical dividers. The horizontal ones are pretty easy. You just stamp in this tire image the same way I did with the car. For the vertical dividers, I'm applying the ink in a swiping motion only at the small area in the center of the stamp. And this is what the end result looks like. All there is left to do now is to stamp the dates, and I'm using the same dater stamp with the same blue ink. The car image is kind of dividing March from April, and that small area below the car is actually meant for the 1st of April. That finishes the last layout for today. Now when all the March spreads are ready, I'm stacking all the pages and placing them back into the planner. And now let's have a look at all 5 weekly spreads for March. Thank you for watching this video till the end. I hope you enjoyed and you are not exhausted yet. If you would like to see more, here are some videos that you might like. Have a great week and I hope to see you back in a couple of days.